Evening, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We're going to go ahead and get this meeting
They go to
started.
Cordell Walker.
Yeah, Cordell Walker's coming in. We're going to ask Mr.
Excuse me for being late.
Okay. We're going to ask Mr. Mosley, would he come and give us a word of prayer?
Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for this beautiful day and your bountiful blessings. We pray that you would be with this August body as they deliberate your business. This we thank you for in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Vice Chairman, just as a note for the record, it's not an official meeting of the board. It's just a public hearing to entertain comments, presentation and comments on the proposed millage rate.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll let Ms. Kim come forth.
Good afternoon. I do want to thank everybody for showing up in support so that we can kind of understand where we've been, where we're heading, where we're going, and kind of how we got here. So can you turn off those lights so that people can see that a little bit better? Thank you. So Ms. Samantha and I put this together to try and, I always think charts and graphs kind of tell a story. So that's what we're going to start with. So I just want to give everybody a picture of where the total general fund budget has been and where it is now. So you can see in 2017, we were right under 30 million. So last year's budget ended up at a little over 42 million, and this year's budget that's adopted was over 46 million. I'm sorry, over 48 million. Over 48 million. So you can see how we've increased here. Within that budget, I just want to remind everybody of what's taken place and what the board has committed to. So over the last 5 years, you've committed to standing up a countywide fire department. You, in the last year and a half, you've taken over EMS, and you've also increased the law enforcement budgets. So within the three large functions of the general fund budget, public safety, general government, and judicial, you can kind of see what has happened, and you can see your commitment to the public safety. But again, you know, if you look in 2020, public safety was 12 million, and the budget currently, public safety occupies 24 million. We've doubled in public safety expenses, okay? That's pretty significant. I also want to remind everybody what our fund balance has done over the past several years. This is total fund balance, the blue line, and the green line is the undesignated and unreserved fund balance. So you can see over the last 3 years, it's gone up, which is good, because we need it. We need it now. I also wanted to show you what the digest has done over the past 10 years. So this is, the purple line is the gross digest, and the blue line is the net digest. The net digest for 2022 is $1,541,000,000. So 1 mil county-wide generates approximately $1.54 million. Okay? And then the red line are the exemptions, which continue to grow. When we isolate those exemptions, you can see the true growth rate. So they've more than doubled. Almost more than doubled. And we are an exemption-rich county. As a citizen, I love that. But as a finance person, that brings challenges. What are those exemptions? Well, these are the list of them. And as I said, they're all eligible for anybody who's eligible can apply for these exemptions down in the assessor's office. So several of us have KDW exemptions. Several of us have elderly exemptions or income exemptions. The two largest exemptions in this list are the disabled veteran, which makes up about 28% of our total exemptions, and that grew last year from 24%. Freeport makes up about 47% of our total exemptions, and that actually decreased in comparison to all the other exemptions. Last year it was right at 50%, and this year it's at 47%. But this gives you an idea of what the eligible exemptions are, how much they are, and the impact that it has on your taxes. So I also wanted to give you a little bit of history of what the millage rate has done. So I'm just gonna remind you, the county has 2 millage rates. It has 1 millage rate for the citizens of Hinesville. That's not the city millage rate, that's the county millage rate for the citizens who live inside the city limits of Hinesville. And then we have a millage rate for everybody else, all the unincorporated folks and the people who live in all the other smaller cities that don't adopt their own millage rate. The reason is for the rollback. So you can see we're proposing to maintain 14.8 as a millage rate for the citizens of Hinesville, and we're proposing to go from 16.6 to 17.4 for everybody else, which is 0.8 of a mills, okay, 0.8. I love this chart because this gives you a really good idea of the different type of growth that takes place within the digest. So the green is the real growth, and the yellow is the reassessed growth. You can see we had significant real growth, significant, but it wasn't enough to match the $6.5 million increase in the general fund budget. Now these dates right here, you say, well, this looks a little wonky. Well, yeah. So in 2013 and 2015, we actually had negative reassessed growth. That's where properties were actually devalued. And then in any one, you can see right here, there's a little bit of negative real growth. That's where something was actually on the digest and has now been taken off for one reason or another. And I'm not mistaken, I think that had to do with the housing out on Fort Stewart. I believe that's what it was. I'd have to go back and verify, but I'm pretty sure that's what caused that in 2014. So House Bill 489 requires that the county roll back the millage rate for citizens who live inside another city that has a millage rate, and that city provides funding to some of the same services. So the city of Hinesville provides funding to LCPC. They provide funding to the chamber. Actually, here are some of the duplicated services. City of Hinesville has their own fire protection, their own building inspectors. They provide funding for the library, for Wright Army Airfield, for the senior citizen program. So all of these things right here are duplicated services that the county needs to roll back for, so that this person who lives inside the city limits of Hinesville doesn't pay for the library twice, once on their city tax and once on their county tax. There's a lot of information on this slide. This is a little reconciliation slide. So when we break up the digest, the unincorporated digest, and you apply the 17.4 millage rate, it will generate a little more than $8 million. All the other cities combined together, other than Hinesville, will generate about 5.5 million. And then in Hinesville, and you'll see, comparatively, they have the largest digest. That is where the population, the most population is, and that's the most dense. When you apply the 14.8, it produces a little over $11 million. All in total will generate little more than almost $25 million. If we reduce that for a 97% collection rate, which, by the way, Commissioner Thrift, at the end of this year, the tax commissioner's office was at 96.89% collection rate on the 2021 taxes. So I do believe that using a 97% collection rate is accurate for the 2022 taxes. So this is our general fund budget, and it has been adjusted for certain items. We've made some increases and some decreases. We went back, and there were certain items that came to our attention after you adopted your budget, so we had to increase for certain items. And then we took a look at trying to cut the budget and certain things. So all in total, when you adopted your budget in June, it was 48.1 million. When we made these changes, cuts and increases, it netted to an additional 363,000. So your adjusted budget will be 48.48 million, almost $48.5 million. If I back out all the other revenue other than taxes, you need $28.3 million. Well, you can see right here, we're going to be short, $4.2 million. Now, we had already identified to use fund balance for some of those items in the general fund. And when we got notice of other items that we've had to cover since July, some of those being one-time expenses, additional pension shortfall, certain capital items that should have come in last year that didn't, that got installed or got acquired this year, we're going to use a little over $2 million, $2.3 million in fund balance to cover those one-time expenses. But then we're going to be probably $2 million short at the end of the day. At the end of the day. And that's why I'm especially grateful that you've got several of your department heads and even some elected officials here to try, so that they know what you're up against, what we're all up against. And it is not unreasonable in any given year for us to come in under budget $1 million or $2 million. I mean, I showed you what fund balance had done in the past couple of years, where we have been adding $1 million or $2 million. And that's not because revenues came in over what we budgeted. It's because we held the line on expenses. And I think we can do that again. And I think sharing this information, it makes it even more important to be conscious of the items that you do purchase this year to see if we can't defer them or do something else. So I say this all to, just so everybody's aware of what you're doing. You're increasing the millage, but we're still going to have a shortfall. And if you think about the things that you've done, especially in the public safety environment, taking over EMS alone was a $2 million a year loss. 1 mil doesn't even cover that. And you're only going up 0.8 of a mil. The fire budget went from about 2.6 to over $4 million this year.
Yeah.
Now, we have gone back through that, and we've cut some things, and we've deferred some things. But again, I say if all we're doing is, if we're already knowing that we're going to use a little more than $2 million in fund balance, it's not unreasonable to say that collectively, as a group, we could save $2 million in a $48 million budget. So I want to give you a little summary again of what this means in dollar impact, okay? So a $150,000 home in the city of Hinesville and a $250,000 home in the city of Hinesville. If your assessment did not go up, you won't have any increase in taxes because the millage rate's the same. Now, if your assessment went up, then yes, of course, even though we hold the millage rate the same, your taxes will increase. When I look at this same example for everybody else, all the other cities and the unincorporated citizens, on a $150,000 home, again, not being reassessed value, the same value as they had last year, the increase in the millage rate will mean another $48 in property tax. And on a $250,000 home, it'll mean $80 in property tax. When you think about all of the things that this board has had to do, especially in the area of public safety, I live inside the city limits of Hinesville, and my home is about a $150,000 home. I'm okay with $48, and I'm not saying everybody is, but I don't think that's unreasonable for what this board is trying to do. I'll do you a couple more examples. Now, collectively, because this is a chart that Commissioner Walden likes to see. He wants to know, in total, what's this going to do? So inside the city limits of Hinesville, the Board of Education actually reduced their millage rate. They didn't roll it back all the way, So they still had to have their 3 public hearings, but they did reduce it. They went from 15.902 to 15.25. There's a savings there of $39. The city of Hinesville went from 10.5 to 10.3, another $12 savings. So if you live inside the city of Hinesville and your assessed value did not go up, you'll actually have a savings of $51. Thank you, Board of Ed. Thank you, City of Hinesville. For that $250,000 home, you'll have a savings of $85. Because again, we're all in this together. And then last, for the unincorporated and other municipalities, the $150,000 home, the increase in tax of the 48 and the decrease from the Board of Education, you'll pay $9 more. And for a
Too fast.
and for a $250,000 home, you'll pay $15 more because you have a $65 savings from the Board of Ed and an $80 increase from us to net you $15. And again, these examples are based on the property values not increasing in assessed value. So if your property value did increase for some reason, it got reevaluated and your assessment went up, then of course, this will vary some. So that is all I have. I would entertain questions, comments.
Go back, just to reiterate, what's a good amount of fund to be kept in the fund balance?
So it varies depending on the time of year. So if tax bills are generated, say in December, we typically will get an inflow of cash starting in January or February. So your fund balance in February, March, and April is going to be very high, okay? Because that's when all your cash is going to come in. It's very much cyclical. And then through this time right now, as I reported last month, your undesignated unreserved fund balance was equal to 3.3 months of reserve, and that was as of the end of August. So as we go into September, October, and November, it's going to continue to decrease until we generate those tax bills, send them out, and get that inflow of cash, because property taxes make up more than half of your revenue.
Okay.
So your fund balance policy says you need to stay between 3 and 7 months of undesignated unreserved fund balance, 3 to 7 months of operations.
Okay.
And again, there have been times during the year that we do dip below 3, and that's normal. And again, it depends on when those tax bills go out.
Now, for those in attendance, explain the digest. The increase, when those things go on to the digest, at what stage are they completed?
Okay, so the digest is everything that is complete as of January 1. So even though you might see some things that might have finished up February, August, July, those won't come on until next year. So your digest is a compilation of all the property values, all the personal property, the real property, the utilities, the commercial, the industrial properties that are taxable properties as of January 1.
Commissioner Thoreau?
I had one question. Could explain the digest values of the homes in the unincorporated area. That's if they currently have exemptions, like ADW, how much can it go up, or can it go up if you have that exemption?
So if you have filed for your KDW exemption, which I hope everybody has, I have, that states that your property taxes in any given year will not increase more than 3%. So what happens is that exemption amount for you that year will fluctuate based on what the value of your home is.
And while we have a lot of our department heads in here and some of our elected officials, I would like to reiterate that if we could save that budget, not spend it all, we won't have to dip into our fund. That would help out a lot. And most of you do that, But I sure love to see that 2 million saved. if
And that's
possible.
not unreasonable.
That-
It is,
that
it's
is
not
not
unreasonable.
at the
We've
increase
done
of
it
this
in, we've
budget.
done it for a $38 and $40 million budget, so it's very feasible that we could save.
Save that amount.
And that's what I'm hoping for. We just sometimes have to stop the spending. If you can get by with what you have, get by with what you have. If you have to have it, then you've got the money there.
And there were things like that, and that has happened this year. There were things that have happened since July 1 that we did not know about when you adopted your budget. So,
Because there's so many people out there, and we all feel the crunch
yes.
of the environment in which we live with higher prices everywhere we go. And to include a little bit of higher taxes this year for some people who may not can afford it.
And anybody who owns a business or runs a business, you know the cost of supplies and services have increased. And we're buying those same supplies, and we're paying for services. So those costs to us have increased.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gill?
Yes, sir.
Could you go back to that, real versus reassessed growth slide? Yeah. Kim, all these years I've been knowing you, and I know you're getting ready to get out of here, but you had orange and blue for Florida.
No.
That looked like Notre Dame. But
So the new CFO is actually a Georgia Bulldog fan, so I'm,
McLaughlin is Irish, though, so
yes, it is, it is.
no, go to the bar graph with the, I guess it was one of the first slides. Right there. And the red and, the increase in public safety. Now, you did say that includes,
That's fire, law enforcement, EMS, the coroner, animal control, EMA. Trying to think who, the operating transfer for 911 that the general fund does. Is that
and,
all of them?
and this time last year, we didn't have, EMS.
No, we were bringing EMS
Right, okay.
on.
And you said that's like 2 million by itself,
Well, the loss.
loss. Okay.
The loss, yes. Yes, and again, so if you just increase the millage rate for taking that over, it'd be more than $1 million. So I applaud your efforts. I'm nervous about the thought of using $2 million in fund balance to cover those recurring type of items if needed. So I caution you, and I stress, as Commissioner Thrift did, if we can all do our part to hold the line wherever we can, that's what we need to try and do.
Okay, and I think, in line with that, you did say, after we had our meetings in the back, that you were gonna, meet with some of the, officials,
Yes.
department heads or elected officials, and you did have that meeting?
No, we're actually going to meet next week, but some of those officials are in this meeting right now. So they are seeing it, but now some of their other directors will see it too.
Okay. Well, I think if you have that meeting, you know, that may help us, have everybody to tighten the belt a little bit. And I would like to thank everyone that did show up here. I was just thinking, with the budget being what it is and looking at the clock, I appreciate y'all meeting during your lunch break, so we want to make sure in the overtime. Not that you would get paid in the overtime.
No, their department has, they're exempt.
But I think if everybody, you know, you see what we're up against, and if you do the best you can to try to hold the line as best you can, I think we'll be okay. That's all I have.
Commissioner Wall?
Yeah, Kim, thank you, and department heads, elected officials, I appreciate it. I mean, it's pretty green, blue, and orange up there. It's not black and blue, but it's you know, there's no bruises up there yet. I applaud you for your work, and this young lady, I hope you have got that many magic markers in your box right there, but I know that one of the most important things that you can have is a fund balance. Working with Chairman McIver,
You cut it off.
well, they can hear me.
Good.
But Chairman McIver always was 100% for having this fund balance.
Yes.
And we've seen how important it is. Joey mentioned earlier on that the fund balance is probably going to be needed more and more because of our old infrastructure. I mean, I know we've had issues at the jail, right, Joey, with the water. We've got other buildings that's as old or older, that's gonna be issues that's out there. So fund balance should be the first thing that we do it at home. We try to put some money in the savings account for later on.
I believe it was Chairman McIver who was the chairman when we established the fund balance policy.
Right.
It was.
He was a proponent of that.
And it was a positive thing, you know, you just never did ever know when you were gonna need anything. And all the other commissioners know that. Fortunately, you know, we live in a pretty rich area, close to a military reservation where we've got housing all the time. One thing that I wonder is the KDW is when it's on 503 Martin Road and it's been listed, when that house is sold, who captures to say that somebody else is moved in that they don't qualify for KDW?
No, the KDW follows the person, not the property.
Well, that's what I'm hoping that it does.
It does.
So, you know, you can have somebody with KDW moving all around the county, you know, and affecting different areas. So I just say, we've got our work cut out for us. I mean, I don't mind telling you, it's scary to know that what's happening out here now, that we've lived on a rich environment. We've lived with Splosh, we've lived with T-Splosh, and we've lived off of the tax dollars here. Commissioner Stevens, he's gonna tell us about a dirt road when we're talking, and he's gonna tell us about things that he wants to have done, just like Commissioner Thrift. I'm fortunate, I inherited a few dirt roads, and right now mine's dusty. They're not wet and muddy, but things like this, we've got to try to address those issues. $2 million coming in from the EMS, somebody had to be paying it. So it was being taxed and sent to the hospital at one time or another, right? I mean, there was $2 million, it's either gonna be paid to EMS or somebody else, so.
They were picking up the shortfall in their budget.
And that's what I'm saying, we've got to have ambulance, we've got to have police protection, we've got to have 911, so let's just, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a tough road, but I think that the leaders that are in this room, you know, we'll all push together. If somebody else needs help, we're just gonna have to give them some help. But again, thank you for what you've done. This will be your last budget, I hope. But I appreciate and enjoyed working with you.
Anyone from the
Is there any?
audience? Comments? No comments back there? Ms. Kim, go back to the exemptions.
I had one question, Mr.
Oh, go ahead.
If you can, maybe before this evening or our next public hearing, how many budget amendments did we have last year? Maybe, you know,
I think we had two, but
Just a-
the biggest one was the one that we had after the year to amend for the bond issue that we did in June. We issued bonds in June, and so we weren't able to amend the budget until after that. But I think we had two, but I'll bring them to you.
Okay,
I'll
all
bring
right.
them to you.
all right, that's,
I'm sorry, you wanted to go back to
Yeah,
what?
go back to the exemption before we. Oh, was there anyone
Those-
from the audience? Don't be afraid. Those who live in Liberty County, this is your tax too.
Exemptions? Is this the one you wanted?
Yeah. How many of those are mandated by the state?
Oh, I'd have to get with the assessors and
Okay.
find that out.
Well,
I don't-
Mr. Brown, help me out on this one. Those that are mandated by the state, they come from Atlanta. We must take care of it, but there's no money that they send from Atlanta to help us take care of it. So the burden falls on the taxpayers of each county. It's not just Liberty County, it's all counties. And there's quite a few up there, and I don't know them right offhand, but there's a few of them up there that it's in that category. So that's another issue, although the digest did grow, but it's being eaten up by those exemptions coming from Atlanta.
I think that
Did I say it right, Ms. Kim?
the digest itself, the growth rate in the digest was over 10% this year in the gross digest. But the growth rate of the exemptions was 15%. So one's in the billion and one's in the millions, but the growth rate of the exemptions is outpacing the growth rate of the growth in the digest. But we are a very exemption-rich county, and a lot of those exemptions are local. They're local. So even though we do have some state mandated, there are a lot of those exemptions that are local. And it does bring people here. So you try and weigh, you know, we give them an exemption, but we get more people here who are gonna spend more money, so we'll get more sales tax and, you know, because
Right,
they're
it's
spending money, and that
roll
sales
over.
tax is definitely increasing.
Yeah. Go back to it.
This one?
Yes. Now, you said our two largest is disabled, and the first one would be Freeport exemptions. And like I said, I've spoke on that several times, just to at least let the citizens know or the taxpayers know what all is involved in that. And in the future, I would like to see us just have a meeting with some taxpayers, open it up and let them know what that Freeport involved. And it's probably gonna stay the same, but I think if we could educate the citizens and the taxpayers much more, we'll be better off by being upfront, being transparent.
Right. Yeah, I won't be the one to run that. Well, I'm not an
Contract.
expert on Freeport tax.
Right, yeah. But it's just
But
a,
I know it's something we provide to
Right.
industries to bring
Right.
in here. But,
Yes.
you know, as far as, do we have a sliding scale? Is it set as, you know, 100% forever? I would not be here.
it's actually set at 100%, regardless if you're here 1 year or 40 years. You know, and like I say, you have to do certain things to entice companies to
Right.
come in. So at least I think if we can start being out front and open with the citizens and taxpayers, I think it'd make I won't say it'd make up here a whole lot easier, but they would understand. Anyone else has anything else to say? Mr. Brown?
No, sir.
Okay, we're gonna just continue this meeting later,
We have another public hearing at 6
6 o'clock this afternoon.
o'clock, same information.
Yeah,
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Guess we're done?
Hey, good
Go
deal.
out of public hearing? Did we go into public
You
hearing?
want a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
No motion.
Okay, good deal.
I'll see.
For a public hearing. All right.